It's a representation of what we want to have in this space to show people that we are embracing what gaming and esports can be on a college campus. It gives us the opportunity to do things that no other school is doing right now.
Hello and welcome to the Daktronics Experience Podcast. I'm Justin Oxner here with Matt Anderson. Today we're at Syracuse University in this really cool esports venue, and we're going to be talking with Joey and Sean. Joey, how you doing?
I'm great. Yeah, thanks for letting us be on here and joining us down here or up here, over here in Central New York. I guess we'll go over here. Yeah.
Sean, how you doing?
Great. Super excited for this.
All right, so before we jump in and talk all about this area and this cool space and what you guys have put together here, let's give a quick intro of yourself and what you do here at Syracuse.
Sure. My name is Joey Gawrysiak. I'm the Executive Director of Esports and a Professor of Practice. So I kind of oversee all things esports at the university. That comes from the academic side, professional development, to the competitive side, the facilities that we're in right now. So really anything esports falls under me, which, as I tell my staff all the time, means I don't actually do anything. So I've hired staff members that actually run and operate each of those different areas, from the production to the academic to the facilities to the competitive side. So we have a huge staff here, and so 7 full-time staff oversee all the staff. Really, I work on those kind of long-term investments and budgeting and strategy, things of that nature, that 30,000-foot view. Been here for about a year and a half, and this is a pretty new program, but the chancellor wanted to go big. He wants to set a new standard for esports, brought me on board. I brought an all-star team in, and so we are well on our way.
Yeah, you definitely have a lot in here going on to definitely set that standard.
Yeah, right.
So then where did you come from, kind of, because I'm just interested in, the career going into this. How do you kind of even get into the esports realm and kind of, you said a year and a half here at Syracuse, right? But how did you get here and from where?
So I came from a school called Shenandoah University, D3 school, Winchester, Virginia, a beautiful area of the country. I was there as a sport management professor, which is my background, is in sport management. And I thought I'd be teaching classes, doing research for a living. And I competed in Halo, quote unquote, in Halo when I was in college. Halo 1, the only good Halo, Halo 1. And so, when I was doing research, I was researching baseball, because I love baseball. And one of my professors said, why don't you research video games? I said, I didn't know that was a thing I could do. And so that led into researching baseball video games and fan avidity, things of that nature. But again, I thought I'd just be a sport management professor. And then at Shenandoah, the president said, why don't you make an esports major? I said, cool, but those don't exist. She said, well, make it exist. And I was like, okay, I know what I'm doing for the next year. And that's make a new curriculum. And so at Shenandoah, we started an esports program. Sean was kind of on that journey down there as well as a student. You can see the age difference pretty clearly. And so while at Shenandoah for 11 years, again, just working in sport management, working in the business school, starting the esports program academically, competitively, built facilities down there as well. Heard the opportunity here at Syracuse. Was like, hey, they're going big. Love the opportunity up there. I also love the weather up there. I love cold. I love gray. I love rain. I love snow. It's like, this is perfect. Now's the time to do this. So that's kind of my journey that led here.
Okay, and you mentioned Sean was down there with you, and now you're here. Can you tell us about how kind of you got here and what you're doing here?
Yeah, so my title here is the Director of Production Outreach. Basically, that means all of our content creation, live production kind of runs through me. So I've been in esports live production for about 5 years now. And my role here, obviously, you guys saw last night, I'd run kind of our live shows for in-venue and at-home spectators through a bunch of different software and hardware in our production room. I can get into that in a little bit. But yeah, I started live production about 5 years ago during COVID. I picked up streaming like a lot of people did, had a lot of fun with that. And while I was at Shenandoah, we came back to the semester where NCAA had suspended all competition, but we were a small enough school that we actually got to come back in person. So Joey and I had a conversation about there's an inherent fan base for Shenandoah athletics. What if we streamed our games, because our games were still going on? And that has now blossomed into this career that I had no idea that I would do. So like Joey said, I was down there as a student. I actually went to Shenandoah as a soccer athlete. I got recruited to play there. Was just going to go into sports management, or not sports management, into IT management. That's what my dad's in. My dad's in cybersecurity and IT management. So I was like, I'll just do what he does. I don't know what I want to do, but I can at least go play soccer in school. And within my first year, I actually quit soccer full time after playing for almost my entire life because I saw this as a career. Started competing on the teams, was the captain of the Overwatch team. And after about 2.5 years, I decided to go full-time into this production and content creation side. Moved through, worked on some major projects while we were at Shenandoah with Overwatch Calling All Heroes, so we worked with Blizzard. We also had a we did an event with NetEase, which is a big development mobile game developer out of China. We did their Dead by Daylight mobile tournament 2 years ago now. Yep. So, and like Joey said, Joey got moved up here, brought myself and another person from Shenandoah who helps run on the academic side.
I didn't poach. Let's be clear. I didn't poach.
No, you have a good analogy for it.
I just offered it up. It's like when a football coach moves to a different school, there's some people from their staff they want to bring up with them because they know their processes, they know their workflow, they know their system that they're in. So I brought a couple of people up with me, but I didn't like poach them and take them away from Shenandoah.
Also Shenandoah is still doing great.
Absolutely.
One of the people we worked with is now the director there, Alyssa. They're still doing fantastic. There's just a cohort of us that are now up here in the cold.
There you go. So you set a nice foundation there and saw an opportunity here and followed that.
Absolutely.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah. Sounds good.
So then I'm even thinking of the timing, right? So you get asked to start this esports program.
Right.
The first year you start up, were you a rookie that year? Like when that started up is when you decided to go over? Kind of how did the timing kind of work out? Or
It actually was perfect. So Sean was a freshman at Shenandoah when I was told, hey, start this esports program. Okay. And I talked about it in a business school orientation because he was looking at like the business school and the management, different programs. And I said, if you're interested in esports, it's this thing like with competitive video games, if you've ever heard of that. And immediately Sean comes running down the aisle. He's an athlete, so he's faster than everybody else in there. Comes running down the aisle. I was like, I play video games. Like, okay, cool. And so that's kind of how we got started. Yeah, you're on. You're the team captain too, because you're the first one here.
Nice. So it sounds like that experience kind of helped you into this role here at Syracuse. Can you talk about kind of bringing it here and starting things here or expanding what was here?
Yeah, so again, this is a chancellor-led initiative, right? This is straight from the top, that he wants to set a new standard for what esports can be in higher education, and he wants it holistically. And I know we throw that term around a lot, like, oh, you have a competitive team and a recreational team and club teams. He wants more than that. And his focus is that academic and professional development side. And that's very similar to what we had at Shenandoah, starting the esports major, having professional development opportunities with organizations endemic and non-endemic to the esports space, traveling the world, around the country, getting our students hands-on learning. And so he saw kind of those opportunities and it's like, hey, bring that here, but make it bigger. I was like, cool, that sounds great. And so I was like, yeah, sign me up. As long as like there is administrative support from that highest level, you can get a lot of stuff done, right? Because it's a new idea. This esports thing in higher ed is different. It's outside the box. It's non-traditional. And that doesn't always work in higher education. This idea of non-traditional in higher education, especially at a Research One institution, is not always copacetic, right? But it was here, and it was that support from the top. He said, let's go in. If we're going to do this, let's do it big and let's do it right. And I said, great, I'm on board for all this stuff. Let's put your money where your mouth is. Clearly, that has worked out for us here. But yeah, it was literally like, he wanted that big look. And so it came here, worked on the academic program. The curriculum was already approved by the state of New York by the time I got here. So there's a lot of groundwork done from faculty that were here and administrators that were here before I even got here. There was a club team here at Syracuse for about 6 or 7 years before I got started here. So there was this groundswell already going on. There was one facility already done, which is a computer lab in our student rec center. It's got 36 PCs. It's got like 5 or 6 console areas.
And that might be your more common one, right? Even
exactly.
For like other colleges and stuff, it starts in a computer lab.
And it's an easy way to get started. And that's what you have to do when you're talking about esports programs in higher education is find a way to get started and then see where it goes from there. See what makes sense for your institution. Because esports doesn't look the same at any one institution to another. It's very different across the board. And here at Syracuse, the chancellor saw that the interest was there, the need was there. How do we have these like innovative programs? What's going to work for that next iteration of learners that can come to this institution? We have this academic cliff going on in 2025 where there's less people being enrolled, less people going to college. How do we increase that enrollment? What are some new things that we can put in place that are attractive to that future generation, but also are meaningful and engaging experiences? And esports was seen as kind of one of those opportunities. It's again, he brought me in, head up the academic side, find corporate foundation partnerships, find study abroad experiences, take your students around the world, take your students around the country, hands-on learning, develop these facilities, develop programming in these spaces. Oh, and by the way, have some competitive teams and win national championships. I was like, oh my gosh, okay, well, casual.
First,
a small task.
Small task. We said start with the ACC. Like, cool, ACC is easy because there's only one varsity program and you're sitting in it.
Okay.
So I was like, we could be the best ACC team right now. I already accomplished that one.
Check it off the list.
Check that one off. So now it's like national championships. Like, all right, here we go. So I don't know if he really understood the full scope of what esports is in higher education when I was brought here and interviewing and talking to them. But I think he's learned very quickly, and he's, again, very supportive, kind of, keeps doubling down on it. Like, we're doing this, and we're doing it right. We're doing it big. We're doing it well. So, tell me what you need. Tell me what we can do, and let's make it happen.
Okay. That kind of led to this space then that we're sitting in.
Yep.
So maybe just describe where we are right now and how that relates to the esports.
How do you describe this? It's the best office space in the world.
And I still don't even know how to describe what I saw.
Maybe a brief tour through the area of what you got set up here.
Yeah, so again, this is our second space on campus, right? And this one's 5,800 square feet. It is right in the center of the student center. And that's very intentional with glass walls, fishbowl effect, lots of foot traffic coming through here. Students like stopping. It's got that wow factor because it's got a cool vibe to it, as the kids would say.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, it's got that vibe and that glow that really brings people in. It's like, oh, let me see what's going on there. And a lot of students will come in that don't even play video games or nothing to do with it, but they come in and they like take videos, and I'm sure they're posting them on Instagram, TikTok, MySpace, whatever's around these days. So yeah, it's a really cool spot, and it's a gaming and esports center, and gaming intentionally is put first because this is not just for our esports teams. Right, esports is that competitive side of the gaming industry, and we've got some elements with that. Obviously, we've got the stage back there, we've got the great LED boards, we've got the PCs, we've got a lot of great stuff for our high-end competitive players. But gaming is so much more than just the esports part, right? And so we have a lot of opportunities in here to engage all students on campus, from tabletop gaming to console gaming. You got the PC gaming right here, again, the stage. And then back behind us, we've got the sim racing, we've got the VR stations. We're not going to say old school. We don't use the term old school. Classic arcade area.
I like that.
That we're working on. Like, well, let's get like a pinball machine in here too. Let's get some more like arcade cabinets and really show students kind of where gaming came from, because they're engaging experiences, right? We just want to bring students in, let them have a space to develop that community, develop that sense of belonging at the university. That's more than just being a student in engineering or business or esports or sport management, right? They have another anchor to the university. And research shows you got to have multiple anchors to keep kids retained to get that 4-year degree. Hopefully in 4 years, sometimes 5, maybe 6, to get that 4-year degree, right? And that's the goal, is that we matriculate all the students that we have at Syracuse. And if a gaming and esports center can be part of that engagement and attachment to keep them here to get that degree, why wouldn't we do it? Right?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is a really great space, really vibrant. It's about 2 months old at this point. Just opened it this semester. Really excited for what this is. This, I would consider, puts us in the top 1% of all collegiate esports facilities in the country.
Yeah.
It's pretty easy to see why.
Yeah.
But it's not only this great space that people do come and develop community and play games, it's also got professional development opportunities with our broadcast and production areas. So it's got a casting booth for students to go in there and do the play-by-play, color commentary for all of our varsity matches. But it's also got a production room, which Sean can talk way more than me about, because I can be like, yeah, I walk in there and I push a button and the lights come on and it looks really cool, but I have no clue what any of this stuff means, but it looks nice.
Yeah.
But we wanted to make sure we had that, and we had the systems in place that mirror what we do in our Newhouse School of Communication, because we want our students that are studying traditional media, broadcast radio, or television, radio, film, broadcast journalism, to study that over in Newhouse, come over here, understand the same workflow, the same systems that they employ over there, but also that sets them up for the professional industry. Not necessarily the professional esports industry, that's an option, but professional sports, professional news, professional entertainment, using the same systems we have here in place, because we want to make sure they're ready for that next step. Again, that idea of professional development beyond competing in games, beyond studying the gaming industry, the gaming ecosystem. It's so much more than that. So we can offer literally every opportunity for every single student on campus in any kind of gaming tech element out of this space. It's a very flexible space. We talked about that yesterday.
Yeah.
A lot of things on wheels.
Lots of
right?
things.
A lot of things on wheels, so we
Yep.
can move things
Almost
around.
everything,
Yeah, so it's almost everything.
Yeah.
Because we want that flexibility, right?
Yeah.
I told you all, my grand dream is to have a string quartet play on the stage at some point, because I just think like you've never seen that before. High top tables, like a high classy affair. I don't know. That's just a dream of mine to have at some point in this space. But again, we want flexibility and programming out here for every part of campus, the wider Syracuse community, to show them, how we embrace an element like this, like esports, like gaming, that leads to an educational opportunity that wasn't previously there.
So there's a lot to dig into here, and I've got tons of questions, which I know Matt's got even more.
Oh, yeah.
But first, I just wanted to clarify something. You said for all the students on campus, so any student could come in here and play some games for free? Is that what I'm hearing?
That's exactly right. Yeah, so this space is open 10 a.m. to 10 p.m., 7 days a week. Students come in, they swipe in with their card and they can play for up to 3 hours. We do limit their time in here because we want them going. They better study at some point.
And it keeps rotating around, so someone's not just
it does. You can't
you
can't just park there and play games for 12 hours, right? So it's
bring your lunchbox. Just sit there all day and eat.
But it's great. In the first month of it being open, we had 1 in every 6 students at the university had come in and used this space. Awesome. And that's just from people swiping in. That's unique students. So obviously a lot of people over and over would do it, but unique student use was 1 in every 6 students within the first month. I don't know if any other part of campus gets that besides maybe Dunkin' Donuts and Panda Express.
Which are right out here.
Which is right out here, exactly.
And maybe on that, the enrollment's about 22,000, something like that.
About
too.
that,
So I think 1/6 of all those students actually came in here.
It's a significant amount.
That's a lot.
Yeah, there's even something I want to touch on, too, about you saying it's about gaming first, right? It's not just about the competitive side. It reminds me of a convention I was at. It was right before COVID, and they were presenting a lot of sessions on esports, right? And there was colleges, and there's the older ADs and stuff. Everyone just talking about they don't understand this. It doesn't make any sense. But then one of the team building things that night was Dave & Buster's, right? They all went out and gave everyone cards. And then I remember laughing because, like, the same people that said they didn't understand it were all gathered around like a big buck hunter on a racing game, cheering and yelling at each other. And it's like, that.
Guys, this is it. This is what we're talking about.
Yeah, and so that's kind of like, even as we looked last night, and I look right now, right, you have your console devices, which is just anybody.
Yeah.
And then it's almost like a little bit more serious with the PCs in the middle, and then the most. So it's almost like you kind of gradually went from like,
very intentional.
Yeah, very But so no, I kind of want to throw it over to you then. So again, you're coming in, you're helping a lot on the production side. So a lot to what you said, Joey, too, right? Is it, I mean, it's been what you said, a month and a half or 2 months here new, but maybe just kind of give us a rundown, because when you were explaining to Justin, Dylan, and myself last night, right, that looked just like a control room we've seen in stadiums and arenas that we visit, which I think was part of your point too, of the education behind broadcasting and everything. But could you maybe talk a little bit about kind of how your setup is back in the control room?
Yeah, so Joey touched on it. We have the systems in there purposefully because of the Newhouse School of Journalism. Did I get that right?
Communication.
I knew it. But because we have such a strong communication program on this campus, there's a lot to pull from. Newhouse has done so much in the way of sports broadcasting with the ACC and ESPN and other things like that, that there are things in place for us to actually learn from and take into a very new industry. And we want to be very intentional. We want students to learn the broadcasting side through the medium esports and be able to, like Joey said, go to news, go to sports, go to other areas, because if you know how to use the tech can be used in a bunch of different areas. So obviously we have the casting room, has enough space for about 2 people, maybe 3, but really we want to do that shoutcasting area, the in-game talent. If there are opportunities at tournaments or other things that we want to run an analyst desk, we can have that capability at some times, but a majority of the time, just about every weekly show will be just those 2 casters. Okay. And then moving over into the room, into the back house, the production room, we have the space for about 6 to 7 people. I think that some nights we might go down 1 or 2 because it may be hard for us to fill all of those roles every single night, 5 nights a week for 4 or 8 weeks a semester. So, but at its max capacity, you can do 6 roles, and I'll go down the bench. So all the way to the right is our audio tech. So there is an audio console there. We run on a mix system of analog, so plug in, and over the internet across a program called Dante. And that pulls in just about all of the audio that you need from across the venue. It pulls in both of our casters. It pulls in all of our player headsets. So if we wanted to, we would give them a warning. But if we wanted to,
watch out what you're going to say here.
We can do a listen in, and you can hear what players are saying in real time. They do that at a lot of the pro scenes if you watch any of those tournaments. And then it brings in all of the other audio inputs from inside the production room, and we have a couple lavalier mics and other things, like if we're doing a TED Talk in here, we can pull you back from back there, or like I said, an analyst desk. Next roll over would be our replay tech. So in other areas, you would have a actual system, sometimes a Dreamcast or other things like that. Dreamcatcher, excuse me. Dreamcast is what Joey grew up on.
Get out of here. Get out of here.
We all know that one.
You just made fun of 3 of us.
Catching strays. My gosh.
My bad. So our replay tech uses a program called vMix. vMix is what I would call very industry standard when it comes to esports broadcasting systems. It can do a lot. It's basically OBS times 100, but we use it solely for its replay capability. So we allow we have a 2-in. Actually, we have a max capacity of an 8-in, 2-out replay system. Wow. We really use it a little more simplified for that system. We only have about 1 or 2 cameras coming in, mainly the game feeds. And then we have a student there splicing it up, making sure that we have either instant replays or end-of-night recaps, top fives, those kind of things. Moving down the bench is then the observer. So we currently have a play-by-play or a player-specific observer. So they're basically the cameraman of esports. So in a stadium, you have 8, 10, 20 cameras around the venue, and that's how you're seeing the puck, the ball, the shot on the basket, whatever it is. For this, we have an in-game observer. So we have someone sitting there in a basically untethered position so they can see both teams. And they are in charge of making sure that we're in the action, watching the right players at the right times, and making sure that we are seeing what we want to see, and the people at home see what they want to see.
So they're like in the game as like an eagle-eye viewer, just seeing where everything's at?
Yeah, so there's basically 2 things. You can either have a drone cam, so you can actually fly around and get that more big picture. Right now, we're mainly using just the player POV style of observing. So call it the numbers 1 through 10. You jump around to the teams and the individual players that you want to watch. Cool. So if Syracuse is 6 through 10, our players last night in Overwatch, we're jumping between those numbers to make sure that we're seeing what we want to see.
Cool.
2 more spots. So the next one over is our graphics engine. So there's someone there making sure that caster names are right, player names are right, teams are on the right side, and that's how we get scoreboards and other things like that. And then the last position would be a TD, a technical director. They're sitting in front of that really big, colorful board that everyone sees.
It's my favorite board. Yeah, I can turn the lights on. It's really nice.
That's where the light button is?
Oh, yeah.
But that is the person that is in charge of the show, basically the step below the producer, making sure that when we want to watch the casters, we're on that camera. When we want to watch the players, we're on that camera. Graphics are on, all those things like that. It is a very in-depth position. You have to know a lot about the board and other things like that. And it helps a lot when we allow a student to get trained on that, because then I can kind of be behind them, not only helping them working with that system as it is new, but also acting more as a producer. So as we train more and more students up, the role for me most nights will be more of a producer, making sure that kind of everyone on the bench is making sure that we're on task, and if there are fires to put out, I can be there. And it makes it easier than if I was the TD trying to put out a fire on the replay tech, then no one's switching the cameras.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Gotcha. Yeah, that was going to be one of my next questions, too, is like you mentioned students. How many students are in those roles that you just listed through?
So of all of those, I think 5 positions on the bench and the 2 casters, all of those are students.
Okay. Nice.
Right now, we're not running with a producer. That's why I didn't say 6 positions in the control room. I would say that I am running as a TD / producer right now to kind of get people trained up. People are either watching what I'm doing, or they've kind of started to learn, and I've been able to kind of teach other roles.
Well, you're pretty new, you said, right? Yeah, this is 2 months old, so yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
you're learning as you go.
Those systems are very, very new to me as well. Like you said, with this space being 2 months old, I've never worked on systems of that caliber before. So it's been excitingly daunting to try to get to that level while also
that was good. That was well said. I like that. I like that one.
Yeah. Trying to not only learn but also teach as I'm learning. So it's like I'm trying to stay like half a step ahead of where we are, so that students can also get that role.
It's a lot of technical, real-world opportunity for those students in there to learn all that.
That's the point of it.
Is excitingly daunting what you thought when you got told to start an esports program? That's what I was just.
I think every morning I wake up, I'm excitedly daunting. It's excitedly daunting to think, oh my gosh, what are we doing today? Every morning. I've never used that phrase, but I'm going to. That's the feeling I have. That's just the words to the feeling. So I'm using that from now on.
There you go. I love it. And then maybe kind of to tie over then, so obviously when you were looking at making this place, and it goes without saying that displays are important when it comes to video games, right?
So a little bit, yeah.
You can see everything what's going on here, and even maybe just kind of take us through the design when you were looking at this, because we know there's the kind of what we say, like the ribbon kind of thing on the outside, which faces more into the student union. We got LED displays here on the top row back. Maybe just kind of talk through a little bit about how when you're laying this out, how did you decide, kind of the display architecture and where that goes?
Yeah, we'll start with the outside because that's kind of the easiest, right? We wanted something visually appealing and engaging when people just step through the doors of the student center, right? Of course, the glass is really cool. You got cool lights inside that kind of peek through. Like, oh, what's going on? Cool, but
I've seen like 7 of them since we've been talking.
Oh, yeah.
Over the shoulder, people coming up to the glass.
They're
like
still
this.
standing out
yeah,
there.
I keep saying I'm going to invest in Windex because we have fingerprints and like all over this glass out here for people just put like nose prints and stuff, like looking in and stuff. Yeah, so we have to clean it constantly. Well, we don't, but people clean it constantly, right? It's just always being used but that's what we want, right? But having that ribbon board outside gives us the opportunity to put like announcements and dates out there, score updates. It can scroll through and say like welcoming messages, or if we have special events going on, we can advertise what's going on out there. It's not going to show like gameplay. Obviously, that's what these displays are for. But out there is supposed to be something to kind of hook people to bring them in, right? That's the whole point of having that ribbon board outside. It's a really cool thing and something that I don't know if I've seen in any other esports facility in the country. That, again, it's engaging, brings people in, just something that's unique to what we want to do here. And then you come inside and you got all the displays in here. And looking at what we've got in here, this was very intentional because we wanted to make sure that, yes, we had gaming for literally everybody on campus, but we also want to start creating fandom. And how do you create fandom without having some great displays for people to be able to see, right? And so we want to have students come in, watch the matches that we have, see the really cool graphics, see the cool instances that we have. And Sean is working on some ideas, like when a goal is scored in Rocket League, everything starts flashing, all these lights start going off, all the graphics start changing. The brr, 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 like you get that air horn sound that goes out, all that kind of that stuff. Because again, it's about the environment, right? And I've talked to a number of students and kind of informally polled them on what's going to bring you into a space, what's going to attract you to come and watch a Rocket League match like you would a basketball match at the Dome, right? I'm not talking about 30,000 people. I'm talking about just 15, 20, 30 people that wouldn't have otherwise come in. And it's not food, it's not T-shirts, it's the vibe in the atmosphere. So it's like, okay, we got to really capitalize on that and make sure we're providing some graphics and experiences on these displays that we have that really bring people in. So we wanted to make sure to have some kind of spectator visual display. That's what this board is that's hanging above the stage right here. That looks like a 1990s yearbook backdrop. That's what we really wanted out of that one right there. So that one intentionally has the highest resolution. It's a 1.5 pixel pitch. It's the clearest one. So you looking at maybe 15 feet away is that optimal clarity on there. We wanted that one to be the most clear one. And it's actually got a bit of a slant to it to bend it down a little bit for people to see it really easily. But that one is kind of like the main viewing experience that we have on all the displays. And we love that one. I love that board. We got to make sure students go around it because we hung it pretty low and we don't want students seeing their heads on it like one of our Rocket League players did. But going around it. And so it's a really great display for the spectators. We put our broadcasts up there. We can put like player cams up there. We can do sponsorships. We can do commercial stuff. We can do a lot of different things up there. Really, really flexible. Love flexibility. And then the back one, that was an interesting one because that was one we're going through when you're designing any facility. You're like, all right, we got the total cost. Here's what we thought it would be. Here's what it really is. Now let's value engineer down to a number that maybe we're more comfortable with. And that back video board was a spot where you're like, we could cut that out if we wanted to try to save some money in this space. And the chancellor was like, absolutely not. No, we are having that video board because we are going to be best in class. We are setting the standard. We want this really cool environment. And we're like, all right, we were just saying like this is an opportunity if you wanted to, but if you want to spend the money, like, okay, cool. So it sounds good to me. So yeah, he was insistent that we have a video board on the back as well, this direct view LED wall, because again, it's a representation of what we want to have in this space to show people that we are embracing what gaming and esports can be on a college campus or in higher ed and scholastic in general. And so, yeah, that back video board intentionally set up that we can do different graphics back there, set different environments, different scenes. It gives us the opportunity to do things that no other school is doing right now and program things out. Sean is learning how to program things out daily back there. At one point, it was bright orange, and that was kind of abrasive to our students that were trying to compete, and it's kind of reflective back there. If you also notice back there, there's a lip so that the chairs that are on wheels don't hit the video board and break anything in there. So yeah, we had to be very careful with the design, but it's very intentional to almost look like it's one giant video board. Like from this view, it almost looks like one giant video board because that back wall doesn't go all the way up, but you can't tell that from here. Right. So it's made to have that illusion that this is one giant technological area of direct view LED walls that are absolutely stunning.
Yeah, and I think this is a good time to call out the text. So the back display is 6.5 feet high by 45 feet wide, and the top display is 3.5 high by 41 feet wide. I believe the back one's a 1.8 millimeter,
1.8.
and then the ribbons around the outside are 1.8 millimeter as well. And that is some of our cutting edge chip on board COB technology. So it's got that
Love the cob.
extra
The cob.
extra protection, like you were
Yes.
saying, the safety thought of putting that lip for the chairs and the display being more robust there too as well.
Yeah, and I'm even thinking you're talking about being able to show what's going on up there, but that's important too because you're talking about inviting people in, but it's important to know like what's going on for cheering it for people to
Right.
learn what's going on, right? Like I've never been to an esports game until last night when you guys
Right.
were playing the Overwatch 2 one, so it was you could see when everyone's cheering the players up here, the varsity players, right, get the backside here, and then it was just like, oh yeah, this is awesome because you can see what happened on there and then why they're. So you start to tie that together, and
Right.
it definitely filled in last night. But it's one of those curiosity things. So if people are wondering why they're cheering or what's going on, you give them a spot to look at, right? Like it's
Yeah, and esports is kind of infamous that it's hard to understand if you don't play the games or know anything
Exactly.
about it. It's
Yeah.
like you're trying to watch Overwatch and like League of Legends. Some of these games is like I have no clue what's going on. Rocket League you can get.
Yeah.
Rocket League is soccer with cars, super easy. One side has more goals than the other. Okay, we get that.
Yep.
But these other games are pretty complicated. So yeah, you're exactly right, Matt. That we're trying to find ways to bring people in to help them understand what to look at, when to cheer, what's going on, help them to find that space. It'd be like me going to I don't know, like a rugby match or something. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. They're all in the scrum together, like trying to push each other, but I have no clue what
What's
that
happening.
means or when
Yeah.
it happens. So that if we can break down that in a way that makes sense for people to bring them in so they understand it, they're more likely to come back and start becoming fans of
Yeah.
what we're doing here on campus.
And maybe part of that is the setup. Explain that a little bit more. There's cameras on each chair at the varsity level, so you got a camera on the player's face, and then on the front side of it, there's a screen that shows what they're viewing in game, and then they put that up on this top one. Maybe more about how you control that would be interesting here.
Yeah, so we have the opportunity to control some of the graphics and also what exactly you guys are seeing out of here. So the TVs in front of every player, we can switch that to either be their POV, so what you saw last night, their PC, actually what they're seeing in real time. But we can also just do cameras straight up.
Oh, okay.
So you can see the players on both sides at all times. And on the top board last night, we were running basically I'm going to call it a 3 program with cameras. So there was a graphical background, or there's the opportunity for a graphical background. Then you have 3 1920 by 1080 pictures, which are just the program out of the RAWs. So you guys last night were seeing all the different assets we were running, map flies, graphics, scoreboards, all that, so you guys could stay up to date with what the actual in-game score was. When we were in-game, you were watching the observer's view. Not any of the individual players mainly, but mostly what the observer was seeing in real time. And then, like I said, we have all 10 cameras online at the same time. So up top is the cameras and what the observer sees. Down low was individual players. So if you were a fan of our DPS Azer, you could watch him because you know he's on PC too.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe even more about what we were seeing last night, because we saw a couple people doing play-by-play, doing the broadcast.
Yeah.
Where does that go, and who gets to see that? I think you're streaming. Is that correct?
Yeah, so when we go live, we go to the official channels for the program on Twitch and YouTube. So that's Syracuse University Esports or Qs_Esports. But we stream to those. We're in an interesting spot because we're so new that we basically were starting from scratch a year and a half ago. And it brought the question of where to go. Right now, multi-streaming is really, really strong. But YouTube in the last, let's call it 2 years, has made a really, really strong push to try to get at Twitch's market share. I think YouTube has a lot of great abilities for us with being able to keep VODs and other things like that. You can, if we stream for the next 10 years, you'll be able to see our first stream match because it's on YouTube. It's always there. Where Twitch, sometimes there's a little bit of hoops you have to jump through if you want to save stuff, and there's limited space and all those things. But that was a big thing for us.
Okay.
So then even taking about, so you've kind of designed this all out. Chancellor said, put that up here, spare no expense, essentially, Jurassic Park. But so you bring all this in, so then I know it's been 2 months, but maybe did you have like a grand opening, or what was that first kind of like the first moment you had people in here or your varsity athletes? Kind of maybe just describe a little bit about that.
Yeah, we actually did a soft launch back in November for a Veterans Day event with different military folks from around the country. So we brought in like a Rocket League team. We did Rocket League. Rocket League. We brought an Army team, Navy, Space Force, Air Force, et cetera. So we brought in these different service branches with their team as a soft launch, kind of test the space out.
Yeah.
But there was no stage. So there were no video boards,
okay.
no stage. That was like, we wanted to make sure that when we were installing that, there wasn't a lot of dust flying around and other things happening.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of like, let's wait on the really expensive tech before, we make sure we get everything else ready to go. Yeah. So we had the space open, but we had curtains over that. So, but they were like blown away. Like, this space is great. It's so much fun. It's so awesome. We've never seen a space like this. I was like, guys, just wait. Just wait till you see in about 2 more months what's happening. And so that soft launch was awesome. Really fun event. Really great to get that feedback from them about what worked well and how we operate things in here, because we want to host a lot of events in this space. So that was kind of a good test. And then January 17th, we did our official grand opening. For that one, we made sure to get all the AV integration done, make sure we had all our systems in place. It at least looked like we had our systems in place. We were kind of, duct taping some things together so that it looked like everything was completely done. Yeah. And the chancellor, most importantly, was like, yeah, this space is great. It's 100% done, ready to go. And we're like, yeah, sure it is.
Sure.
Then we fixed some things after that. But it was a grand opening that we invited people from the community in, people from across campus in. Of course, we had our teams in here, our student leaders as part of the program that were in here to be part of that program. We had students doing the ribbon cutting with the chancellor. We unveiled our national championship trophy in Counter-Strike 2 that we won last year.
Nice.
So we kind of did an unveiling for that, recognized the team in that instance as well. And then we did a demonstration in here with our varsity Rocket League team against our ROTC team on campus that we have for Rocket League. So did a little demonstration for them. We showed a really cool intro video of the space and of the program that one of our students created out of Newhouse. So he's not even in the esports program, but he works with the esports program to get that professional development. Made an incredible video. He actually recorded the grand opening, made video of that as well. So it's very meta of him. But it was great because the chancellor was here on site to talk and thank people, do the dedication of the space. And we were told, like, the chancellor will come, he's going to be there, we'll make sure that he knows where to go, when to sit down, and then he's going to leave after like 30 minutes. I was like, okay, I get it. He's got a lot of stuff to do. He's kind of a busy guy.
Yeah.
But he stayed for almost 2 hours.
Oh, wow.
Because he was so enthralled with what was going on, loved what was happening,
That's awesome.
was like talking to students, was super excited about what was going on. So that was like, all right, we nailed it.
Yeah.
If the chancellor is still here way past time that people told me he was going to leave.
That's a good sign.
That's a good sign. I was
That
like,
means
all
you
right.
told other people, tell them I'll rebook, I'll reschedule.
I'll get back to
them
them some other time.
Yeah.
This is what I'm
Just
doing
so
right
fun.
now. Exactly. Yeah. So it was a really, really fun event. It was just super fun. One of our partners, Gen G from South Korea, was also here to work with us. They bring students out to internships and experiential learning with them. We'll be having them back on campus for an event coming up in the fall as well. But they're one of the top esports organizations in the world.
Oh, wow.
And so having them on campus, their CEO was here to also talk about what the benefit of esports and gaming in higher education for students. So that was really powerful and meaningful
nice.
too. It was just a super fun event. It was like, I don't know, probably like 200 people, if I had to guess. I think we were banking at about maybe 60 people being here. It was a Friday right before MLK weekend. So like, nobody's going to be here. People are on vacation or not going to be. And I was sitting in the front row and I got up to speak and I turned around, I was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot of people here. Like I had no clue there were that many people that had come in. So it was really, really cool to see that support and see the interest that people had to try to understand. Again, it's different. This is new. They were trying to understand what this is and not just hearing about it, but seeing it in person. So that was really big for us.
Yeah, and I'm thinking even this space, you talk about wanting to host a lot of events, and you'd kind of design this space to work for that and to work for esports and just gaming in general for all students. And I believe you worked with an integrator, AVL Systems, on the integration there, along with Daktronics. So Daktronics did the video boards. AVL kind of helped tie in. You mentioned AV integration of pulling everything else together. So designing that space, was it thought like, hey, we want to host, you mentioned a lot of events. Does that include just esports specific events and other events? You mentioned the string quartet.
Aside from the quartet,
Come on, can we go back to that?
You've got your dream of what's going to happen.
Yeah.
How many of those things, other things, do you think will just kind of pop up naturally now that you've got this awesome space?
Yeah, we're getting requests all the time for like small like meetings across campus. So like when advisors out of like our Maxwell school want to have like a retreat or something fun, like, hey, can we stop in the esports space and maybe do a little speaking engagement in there and hear about what esports is, but also let our advisors play some games and explore the space? Like, absolutely. Bring them in. Let them play some Beat Saber over on VR. Let them sit in the sim racing areas. Let them come play some Catan over here in the board game area. Whatever they want to do, because again, we want to bring people in. And so, yeah, working with Horizon AVL as the AV integrator, working with Daktronics, we knew like this was very intentional that we want to do things in here that is not just esports. Sure, that's kind of the focus is esports and gaming, clearly, with the space that we're in. But we want to host all kinds of things across campus. And Sean hates it when I do this, but my answer to everything is always yes. If people are like, hey, can we do something in this space? Like, yeah, let's make it happen. Hey, Sean, how can you make that happen now?
That's usually the second sentence.
That's exactly what comes afterward. Yeah, but very intentional. We want to host as many events as we possibly can in this space. Gaming, esports, retreats. We want to host a lot of high school events in this space as well. We bring high schoolers in here because esports is a path to college, right? And if we can show high school students that what Syracuse is doing that's indicative of the larger collegiate landscape, then why wouldn't we do that? And it's also really good marketing for us because I bring a high school in here. I don't have to say a thing. They're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to come to Syracuse. I'm like, cool, yeah, I'd love for you to come to Syracuse.
Yeah. So it's a recruiting tool for orientations
100%,
and everything like that too.
And there's not a lot of other esports venues across the country like this, especially. So when you were looking at designing, where did you get the ideas from? Was it a lot of just talking with the integrators or thinking, hey, this would be cool, or maybe we want this logo on the ceiling here? Or what?
We put S's everywhere. Yeah, S's are everywhere. Yep. And so, we worked with a company called Populous that does a lot of esports entertainment designs around the world for at different levels. So we worked with them on some initial designs and kind of the vision for what this could be. We took some inspiration from Butler University as well. They've got a pretty new facility. It's maybe a few years old, 3 or 4 years old at this point. Took some inspiration from them with how it was set up as well. But then, of course, we wanted to make it our own. Cool. This is what's out there. This is what people are doing. I'm not going to say steal. We borrow ideas from a lot of the people.
Idea hacking is what I've
Idea hacking. Absolutely. That's a great one. So we do that from like places like Boise State that's had a facility for 8 years at this point that they just kind of cobble together, but they run an incredibly successful program. And we're like, why don't we make it intentionally incredible from the get-go? We don't have to cobble things together. We stole idea hacked inspiration from a lot of other areas, but working with Populous, working with Daktronics, working with Horizon AVL, and working internally with our architects, Ashley McGraw, as well as just our physical plant on campus for what's going to make the most sense. How are we going to set this up to achieve all the goals that we want to achieve as an institution for our current and our future learners, but also make sure it makes sense and sets that standard, right? And so the little things, like I told y'all, and I say y'all, I'm from Georgia. I told y'all yesterday, like my favorite thing about this space is something that nobody really even like notices, and that's the floor that we're standing on, right? Because it's a 2.5-inch raise that has like all the cable running in there. I'm like, that's a super cool like problem-solving example because that was a concrete floor. And one of the biggest concerns with an esports space is cable management because there are cords everywhere.
There's none hanging down from the ceiling or anything.
Exactly. So it keeps it really clean and really safe, but it also keeps it sustainable because people aren't tripping over cords. They're not getting close in something, getting rolled over by all these wheels that we have on almost everything. And so, that was a big part too. And I would never have really thought of that. So we had much smarter people than me, which happens all the time, tell us like what they think, this would work. Okay, we hear what you want to do, but here's how it could work. We're like, yeah, cool. So constant conversation about 2.5 years of the planning and the design and the construction and everything to go with it. This is an old bookstore, right? This was part of our bookstore on campus that we kind of cut in half on the top level to keep half of it on this level, and then the floor underneath us is still the full bookstore. But again, the chancellor wanted it right front and center on campus, very visible. So it took a lot of people working together to make sure we had the vision come to fruition.
Yeah, and had you heard about Daktronics at all before this? It's always kind of a question we have, like for the video boards and LED displays. At what point did we become involved in this project too, or was it?
What I know about Daktronics before this was they make really cool sports video boards. Because I'm a sports fan, So I'm like, oh, Daktronics board. Yeah, I couldn't tell you another brand of a big TV up there.
That's
maybe
good.
Samsung, maybe Sony. I don't know. I just know the TVs I buy at home. That's about all I can think of.
There you go.
But I knew Daktronics. You always hear that phrase when people talk about really great video boards at sports venues. And I was like, okay, why don't we put that in our facility then? That would make sense because this is a sport. Esports is a sport. And when we have a venue like this to develop fans and to bring people in here, why would we not mimic what we do in the Dome or in traditional sports, whether it's at Syracuse or other places? It's let's hang some DAC boards up. And it's DAC. Not even Daktronics, it's just DAC boards.
Yeah, I know.
I was like, all right, cool, I love that. Yeah, let's get some DAC boards in there then. So I had only known DAC from traditional sports. And I was like, yeah, let's put it up in some esports spaces and again, set that new standard and kind of mimic what traditional sports has done so well for so long.
Yeah, no, maybe we'll tie up kind of a question that we like to ask at the end at our podcast. And we'll start with you, Sean. Here is, It's kind of fresh right now. Again, we haven't said it a couple times maybe
Right.
that it's been 2 months. It's really new. But we always like to ask people what advice would they give to other people in their situation, right? So if you're thinking of another school, preferably one you don't compete with, maybe they're a long ways away so they don't get anything from this. But if someone's going through what you just went through, like what advice would you give them?
Get some sleep now before you actually start
Yeah,
playing.
honestly, yeah. Make sure you stock up on sleep before.
It's like a new parent.
I don't. Like what we learned from this process, or like from opening here.
Yeah. And so far, right? Because
Yeah,
you're still learning kind of as you go. But
I think that you can never plan for how different of a tactic might come once you start being and living in the space. I think that we've tried to plan to be very flexible, very mobile, very things like that, and there still is probably another level of like, oh, I wish we could do XYZ. I wish we could have a camera feed by the glass. I wish we could have a soundboard over there and an analyst desk over there. I wish we could. You can never be flexible enough. So you will only learn the 100% of what you want out of the space once you start playing in it, using it, learning from it. So,
well, that's good.
Yeah, you got to live in it.
Yeah.
My biggest advice is get started.
Yeah.
You just get started, right? You can't accomplish what you want to accomplish like 100% best in the world by just like full bore. All right, we want to go from 0 to 100 right now. Let's go. It doesn't work like that, right? You got to get started. As Sean was saying, get started to the point that you can live in a space to really understand what's going to be impactful on your campus community and work for your institution. Because again, every school is different. Every school has different goals, different objectives, different students that maybe have different goals and objectives. But you don't know what that is until you live in it. So for schools that are thinking about starting this, or people that want to build an esports facility, number one, find a way to get started. Make it flexible. Make it so it's not just about esports and video games as well. So bring in other people across campus. Bring in your VR areas. Bring in your STEM areas across campus, your engineering, and say, hey, what out of a space could you utilize that we could also utilize? That way it's not just about one department or another. It's cross-collaboration all of a sudden, right? So it makes it much easier. It's a much lower hill to climb. Smaller hill, steeper, shallow, whatever. Yeah. It makes things much easier when you cross-collaborate across campus, different departments. And ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Like, I'll ask questions all the time about like, what does that mean? What does this do? How does this operate? How do we make this happen? Don't be afraid to ask the questions, but also don't be afraid to vocalize what you want out of that. If you're somebody that's going to be the main anchor tenant of that space, that end user of that space, make sure it's going to accomplish the things that you have in mind for that space to accomplish. And then ask questions about how to get there.
Yeah, there you go. And I think what you've accomplished here is nothing short of amazing. And I'm not exaggerating. Experiencing it last night,
my
and
gosh.
seeing everything in person. I was talking to these guys this morning, saying, "Yeah, I'd probably come back and watch a game. I want to see some counter.
You should.
Action.
Yeah.
And just hang out, and maybe we want to hang out and play some games and extend our trip or something." But no, I want to thank you for taking the time to sit down with us and share everything about this amazing space you put together.
Yeah, appreciate that, guys. No, thank you for being here and taking the time. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. But it's not a bad office space to be in. No. And we're just getting started. We got another facility coming in the very near future.
We'll come
There you
back
go.
for that.
Teaser.
then.
Yeah.
There you go. All right. Thanks, guys.
thank you.